Welcome back to Against the Cage, your new MMA home for all the fight recaps and previews and exclusive interviews that your heart desires. My name is Jake Aryeh. I'm joined here by Scott Fontana and Erich Richter. And while I want to say happy birthday to Erich, and that's exciting news, the newsroom of the New York Post has unfortunately suffered a terrible loss. Scott, I understand you have a few words that you'd like to say about our friend Larry.
Yeah, of course, the New York Post Sports today lost a giant with the passing of Hockey Hall of Famer, uh, tremendously respected reporter Larry Brooks. The entire communities of hockey and New York sports journalism were all mourning Larry. We're all thinking of the Brooks family right now and those who knew him best. Particularly at our outlet, many knew him better than I did. I think that's fair to say. There's some lovely, touching tributes on our website you can read about, in the paper as well. Personally, I had a small capacity in working with his copy from time to time in the editorial department. Real pro whenever I had to work with him on anything that we needed to smooth out or anything like that. And it really was just a privilege to be able to work with a Hall of Fame worthy words. He will be sorely missed around here.
Absolutely, and I believe I speak for Erich when I say we'd like to echo all of what you just said. But looking forward to this weekend. We do have a crazy card for UFC 322 in our home field of New York City. And once again, happy birthday, Erich. Can't let that go unnoticed. But very excited for this weekend.
Big 3-0.
The big 3-0 for 322. And guys, we got two super fights for this card. And Scott, I want to ask you, for these two super fights, Jack Della Maddalena, Islam Makhachev, Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili, two people coming up from their divisions to challenge the higher weight class. I got to ask you, does this still feel like champ fights after, the people in the lower weight classes had to vacate their belts to challenge for the upper class? Do you think that they missed out on a promotional opportunity here, or does it still feel like a champ fight to you?
It's definitely a missed opportunity, at least as far as kind of getting that message out to the masses. If they're really looking to get just a gigantic figure out there, it's much easier to promote these two fights if you just say they're champion versus champion. We don't have that. There's the qualifiers that, hey, listen, these are two of the best. They were the best of their weight class, not of the best. They were the best in their respective weight classes. Zhang Weili, Islam Makhachev coming up and challenging for new belts. And they did willingly relinquish them, right? I asked Islam at media day yesterday, if there was like a missed opportunity here, and he really just didn't want to hold up the division. That was the thing he wanted to maintain. But having said that, I still think, as much as I admire that, it definitely missed that cool opportunity for, again, the masses, the casuals, getting those people in. But we know how big these fights are, right, Erich?
Oh, we 100% know. Now, the only thing that I don't understand is like, why not walk out with the belt? Like, I understand that Mackenzie Dern is now the strawweight champion, so Zhang Weili's not the champion anymore, but that never stopped anybody in the past. Like, Mr. Box Office, as resident box office guy, Conor McGregor was walking around with the belt. When he was no longer the featherweight champion, he was walking around with the belt against when he was fighting Khabib and all that jazz. So, yeah, I just feel like it could add a little bit more cachet to, especially a woman's fight where Zhang Weili doesn't speak English. You could kind of maybe ingratiate herself a little bit.
She's
And
doing a lot
under
of English this week, dude.
She is.
You be
actually,
kind to her. She's been doing a lot of English this week, my
that's
friend.
great for her. I haven't actually heard her speak English before, so but that's great for her that she's learning. And the only reason I say it is because you could help her maybe build her stock even more.
She's been watching the show, so no.
And we're gonna has she?
No,
That's awesome.
Keep going. It was a bad joke. I was saying she's been watching you give some pointers.
Oh.
But let's go ahead and talk about this main card, or the main event fight: Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makhachev. Scott, I'll throw it to you one more time. Jack has had a little bit of a different rise to the belt than a lot of other people have. He only had one top 10 win going into that fight with Belal Muhammad. What kind of dominance at 170 are we looking at going into his first title defense?
It's relatively low, and I don't mean that as a diss. This is just kind of like the lay of the land here, right? Because as far as champions go, the sheer fact he's just not faced that many top welterweights, like you said. I mean, I don't recall exactly where Gilbert Burns was when he did pick up the win over him. Comeback win, impressive comeback to get that one. But Burns right now, he sits outside the top 11. He literally only has one win in the top 11, and that is Belal Muhammad, the man he took the belt from. So there's almost like it's almost a good thing promotionally because I think it adds a wild card, an imagination element that lets you kind of go into overdrive. You don't know how Jack Della Maddalena is going to be as far as him as a champion. Maybe he is going to be that dude and he's just young in the sport and we've got so many guys he's just about to knock down. We don't know that. We don't know that he's going to go out there and go crazy on Islam Makhachev. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. I think there is something that almost makes that better for us to imagine what can happen rather than a known quantity. We're like, well, we know we can do this, this, and this, and this, and this. Let's see. So it is interesting.
100%. Eric, I gotta get your thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because and we go through his opponents, right? So Andre Lusa on Dana White Contender Series, unanimous decision. Pete Rodriguez, Ramazan Emeev, Danny Roberts, Randy Brown, Kevin Holland, Gilbert Burns, and then Bilal Muhammad. A lot of those guys aren't in the UFC anymore, right? So there's a ton of unknown about where exactly Jack Della Maddalena is. And this welterweight division is absolutely loaded. Sean Brady, Shavkat Rakhmonov. How did he never fight Leon Edwards or Kamaru Usman? Another question that I have is obviously he was scheduled to fight, I believe he was scheduled to fight Leon Edwards at one point, and then that fight ended up getting rescheduled. I have a lot of questions about how he got to this point so quickly, but he's done amazing to get to this point now. And this is not super relevant, but I think it does tell me kind of where fans are at this point. There's a lot of recency bias involved. But No More Casuals is an Instagram account that I follow, and they did a bracket style, which is non-perfect, but a bracket style tournament of best strikers in welterweight history. Okay. This is very interesting to me. Jack Della Maddalena won the bracket as the best striker through Instagram votes, and this Instagram account has 350,000 followers. He won for best striker in welterweight history. Okay, Scott, I'll throw it to you on that, but some contenders: Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, GSP, Carlos Condit, Robbie Lawler, Jack Della Maddalena beat them all.
It's through Instagram. This was the vote on Instagram.
Yes,
Okay.
there are matchups and then there's voting through there.
So that's kind of the stupidest way to do a poll. If I can if I could think of a stupider way to do a poll, social media would be the way to do it. So
Well,
that's pretty much it. That's where I'm at with that. I'm sorry. This is my initial reaction to that. I don't care. It's a stupid methodology. And I'm not even saying it's exactly wrong. I don't know that I would put Jack Della Maddalena at number one. I don't think that's where I would go right now. Talk to me in a couple years when we've got a little bit more that we can kind of process and that kind of thing. But this is very much just like, hey, he's the next hot thing, and we don't remember anything that happened a minute ago. So let's just vote for this. So when I hear that, I'm like, that's a stupid thing. I don't care. Like this is just some stupid guy's poll. I'm sorry.
fair enough.
All right, well, let's talk about the guy standing at the other end of the octagon, Mr. Islam Makhachev. And it's no secret, there's been a ton of similarities drawn between him and Khabib. I mean, they're, for lack of a better word, brother from another mother. Like, these guys are as close as you could get. He's followed in Khabib's footsteps at lightweight.
They call each other brothers, yeah.
Exactly. Eric, I'll throw this one to you. Is this opportunity for Islam to win a second title in another division, is this a way for him to differentiate himself from Khabib, to maybe move out of his shadow and, maybe carve a legacy of his own different from Khabib's?
It absolutely is an opportunity for him to maybe move on from the whole, he's Khabib Nurmagomedov's protege and the favorite student of his late great father. Now, when you look at their lightweight reigns, they're really similar. If you really go and look at them, Khabib, his title fights were Al Iaquinta, which was a short notice replacement fight at the last second, Conor McGregor, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. So they only had four title fights in there. Islam Makhachev, similar, Charles Oliveira, Alexander Volkanovski twice, Dustin Poirier, and then Renato Moicano, another late replacement fight. Now, I would like to see, and it's going to be really hard to overstep Khabib undefeated. Islam Makhachev has a loss to Adriano Martins, flash KO, his second fight in the UFC in the first round. It's a long time ago, back in 2015.
That was the
Doesn't
one
really
I
tell
couldn't
us.
think of last week. I was trying to think of the
Yes,
name of
yeah.
Martins. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Adriano Martins. It was a flash KO. It doesn't really tell you a whole lot about Islam Makhachev as a fighter. Now, like, is he going to be able to really say like for sure I'm better? Well, if he has a prolonged, run here at welterweight, the weight class is absolutely loaded. Like Kamaru Usman's still at the top of his game. Ian Gary, Shavkat Rakhmonov, if he comes back, Sean Brady was also on this card. If he can, I mean, if he cleared out welterweight, which I think would be crazy. I don't think that's. I'm not even asking him to do that. But if he came close to clearing out welterweight, I think that would really put him ahead of where Khabib ended his career. Because frankly, I feel like Khabib retired a little early. I think that Dana White talked about that. Obviously, there was circumstances with his father dying that he promised not to fight anymore. Totally understand that. But I think that there is an opportunity for Islam Makhachev to be the welterweight, to jump up, be a welterweight, and maybe step out a little bit from where Khabib had him. What say you, Scott?
In some ways, yes, this is definitely an opportunity for him to make his own path, right? To carve his own path because it's something very different from anything Khabib wanted to do. Frankly, he was never interested very publicly in the idea of moving on from lightweight. He kind of wanted to stay at lightweight all along. Islam has had a different aspiration here, but at the same time, I also think he does stand on his own. I think he already does in some ways because realistically, he has put together an amazing resume, all his own. And the other part of that, though, is that frankly, he can never separate himself because the man is his coach, and he's there all the time. You can't even forget about him because he's in his corner. It's a very hard thing to separate. So, but I do think, again, to your point, kind of, and I think to everybody's point, realistically, when we look at this is the difference maker, right? He can be treated in a completely different way because then he starts to get into that champ discussion. That's a very different thing. He told me yesterday when we were talking to him in a little media scrum at media day that he would like to have many more title defenses at 170 pounds too. So he's not just content to just get this belt and maybe win another title or title defense and then move on. I think some people were wondering maybe is he near the end of the road. It doesn't sound like that. It sounds like he's got a lot more in him. And if he does what he needs to do, we might be talking about him as the most successful champ ever. That is an extremely high category, and nothing Khabib can touch either. It would be remarkable.
Yeah, fair enough. Eric, anything else before we move on to our sports entertainment rating?
I'm interested to see what happens if he loses. Will he fight Ilia Topuria at lightweight? It's another thing that is on the potential horizon. Maybe something we discuss next week if and when we get there.
100%. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to see what happens there. But let's get to our sports entertainment rating. Out of 5, 1 sports, 1 entertainment. For the sporting aspect of this, I'm giving it a 5. Jack Della Maddalena is the rightful claimer of the 170. He beat the man. He is the man. He's the welterweight champion. Islam Makhachev, is he? I'm not sure if he's 1 or 2 right now in pound for pound rankings. Scott's favorite thing, but he's a top tier athlete in the UFC. I'm giving this one a 5. Entertainment, I'm giving this one a 5. It's a super fight. I feel like this is the biggest fight of the year. It's a 5 and a 5 for me. Scott, what do you got?
Wow.
Yo, kick it to Eric. I'll go last.
Eric, what do you got?
I'll go also 5 on sporting, and then I'll go 4 on entertainment. Just because there's so many other matchups that you could have at welterweight that it's hard to pick between all of them. And I also wanted Makhachev to fight at lightweight against Ilia Topuria. That would have been a 5 for me in both. So that's just my personal opinion, but I'll go 9.
What do you got, Scott?
So I was looking at the entertainment rating. It's a 5. Come on, for sports, like it's number 1 versus number 1. That's really what it is. So this is a 5. If we could do a 6, it's a 6. But as far as that, it's a 5, right? Entertainment. I look at entertainment more from like how much am I looking forward to watching them combat in the cage in particular, unless I'm getting some sort of entertainment outside of it in a very different way. And I do see this one having the potential for some very fascinating types of fireworks. I could also see it maybe ending on the quicker side and maybe leave us wanting a little bit more potentially, especially if it's Islam who can get it down and do what we've seen him do before. I don't know that we're going to do that, but there's a lot of possibilities. I think there's a high potential for a fight of the night type of situation. So I'm giving this a 5 as well. I've got a 10. Jake, you have a 10.
Eric's got a
Eric has a
9.
9. So we've got this as a 9.67. Not a perfect rating. It's not quite at that perfect level we were almost having at what was it Poetan and no, which one was the 5? What were the 10
Did we
out
have
of
a
10
perfect
for all
score?
everything?
We
We
did
did have
have a
one
perfect
perfect
score.
score this time.
Ah, I'll
Forgetting
figure
off
it
the top of my
out.
head,
I'll
but either
find
way,
it. I'll find it.
we'll find
Yeah,
it.
we
We'll figure it
definitely.
out.
Pretty good.
But yeah, so that's where we're at. A very, very. This is the second highest rating we've done for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's see if the co-main event can follow suit. We've got Valentina Shevchenko defending her belt against the former strawweight champion Zhang Weili. And let's talk about Valentina first, respect to the champion, right? She has done quite a few things at 125. She's had more title fights than I can count on two hands, right? Is there anything else that she has left to take care of at 125, or is this it? Scott, what do you have?
I think if she has aspirations to try 135 pounds again, where she very nearly became the champion, no one would begrudge her of that, right? If she wants to chase a different type of history, maybe sort of the same way Islam and Weili are doing right here, no one could falter. The stars aren't really aligned for it at the moment, so there's kind of that blocking it. But at the same time, there are plenty of fresh and compelling challengers awaiting her if she does want to stick around. Natalia Silva is right there in the mix. Erin Blanchfield, she could get a win this weekend over Tracy Cortez at the Garden too. That puts her in an even stronger position as well. Macy Barber, even if she can kind of get back on track. Heck, don't even rule out Rose Namajunas as a possibility. I mean, that's kind of a super fight that a lot of people kind of wanted to see for a long time. Rose against Valentina. If Valentina sought one of the biggest fights again, that's fine. But even if she moves on, there's still Manon Fiorot in the mix with all those other women, and I think the division's in a good place.
Eric, what say you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's left for a 125. I think that if Erin Blanchfield had a really good performance, then I would be fine if she were to win. And then like you're projecting some stuff out, but say Blanchfield has an awesome performance, and then Shevchenko wins. I'm fine with that as a matchup. But outside of that, I would be fine if she wanted to move on. 135 would be really fun for her. It would be really fun. I don't know where she's at weight wise and size wise, but I think that'd be really fun.
The division looks very different than when she was up at 35 too. So there's a lot of freshness to it. You know, if whether she goes against Amanda Nunes, I think that third time is pretty okay with a lot of people because of how close, especially the second fight was between them. So that's an option. And then if it's Kayla Harrison who would emerge from that, anticipated matchup here, that's another fresh matchup. The size difference would be very fascinating there, but I imagine Valentina is up for a challenge, so that wouldn't really be the problem.
Yeah, for me, this is maybe a little bit before my time thinking of Valentina as a 135 or I for the vast majority of I'm maybe the entire majority of me like really watching MMA, Valentina's in my mind been a flyweight. So her moving up to 135 against someone like Kayla Harrison, for instance, like boggles my mind, but
Yep.
could be fun.
If she says, put it this way, if she ever says she's going up to 35 again, the first homework that we're given right up on that news is you're going to watch Valentina versus Amanda Nunes, their title fight, the second fight event.
Alrighty, sounds like a plan. But let's talk about Zhang Weili, the former strawweight champion, coming up to 125. And Eric, I'm going to throw this to you. What do you think a second title would do for her legacy in women's MMA history? Scott, I know when we talked about the last fight you had against Tatiana Suarez, we said it's very easily arguable that she's the greatest strawweight of all time. If she goes ahead and gets that second belt, Eric, what do you think that does for her legacy?
Well, I mean, she enters the women GOAT conversation, and then and she's already probably the best fighter in Chinese history, especially at women's, but probably the best fighter in Chinese history. And it's just like you get into it, it's like Amanda Nunes, and it's like Chris Cyborg, and then Valentina. Does she leap Valentina, having grabbed the second title? Obviously, you have the Zhang Weili being knocked out in that one title fight against Rose Namajunas, but it's tough. Like if she wins this fight going up in weight, she isn't a betting underdog. I mean, you could really talk about her in a way where she's as good or better than any of those women that I listed there. I think it really it puts her into a status of that might only have four fighters there, Mount Rushmore of women's MMA type stuff, which makes it really really intriguing. That really makes the stakes of this fight so high because Zhang Weili could leapfrog Valentina Shevchenko on the women's GOAT status, or Valentina Shevchenko maybe holds her spot as maybe one of the women's GOATs.
All right, Scott, what do you think?
It's an interesting legacy fight, absolutely. But as far as the place of Zhang Weili in women's MMA history, if she, let's say if she does win this, right, the initial question, she instantly joins that pantheon that Eric is talking about. For my money, she already is the greatest strawweight, like you alluded to from our previous conversation, Jake. I think there's room for debate, with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, even though she beat her twice. Weili beat Joanna twice. There's also Thug Rose in there, even though she lost to Rose two times. So it's a very interesting dynamic there. But the difference would be those two women, they went up to 125. Joanna missed out. She did not beat Valentina Shevchenko the one time they met, and they were both at least semi in their primes too. So that was an interesting type of matchup there. And then Thug Rose, she's at 125 right now herself. She's not able to get up to that point just yet. Can't rule it out, but it's not there. Zhang Weili, she would just join Amanda Nunes as the only other woman in the UFC to win two championships. That is an incredibly special thing, and it does put her up at a higher level. And it really could be the type of thing that does put her past Valentina Shevchenko, as much as Shevchenko's done amazing work at two weight classes herself. There's something special about winning, especially at those two lower weight classes where the talent is probably deeper than it is at 135 and 45.
Absolutely. And I remember the last time we talked about this, I'm not sure if it was last week or the week before, you mentioned Chris Cyborg as that's a tough one in your mind for her to overcome as in terms of the women's GOAT conversation. And Eric, you also alluded to Chris Cyborg as well. What do we think? Still no? Well, I guess we have to see the performance, right?
Let's wait a week before we start thinking about it.
I'll
give you an answer in a week if you want to ask, but I will say there is such a tremendous body of work. Yeah, the bar is extremely high.
All right. Well, we'll see if Weili can be up to the challenge. Let's get to our sports entertainment rating for this one. From a sporting aspect, I mean, come on now, it's a 5. Like, it's got to be a 5. In terms of the entertainment aspect, I'm gonna give this one I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4. Just because of the stature of these two women, it can't be a 3 in my mind. I wouldn't argue if it was a 3 for someone, but it's not a 5 for me just because I could see it not being everything I would hope for in a 5-round fight. So, Eric, I'll go with you. What do you got?
Sporting, I don't even think we need to talk about it. It's definitely a 5 in sporting. Now, when you get to the entertainment side, it's minus 220 to go the distance. And for whatever reason, I just don't see that happening. And it's not like that's not one of my big bets of the weekend. I just see this is going to be chaos. I'm going to go 5 for entertainment. I think it's going to be the most entertaining women's fight of the year. So I'm going for it. 5 and 5. I'm going 100. It's a super fight. This is a super fight where you get the top fighter at strawweight moving up to flyweight. I have to go to I'm going perfect score. It's probably the first one I've given out. Actually, no. I've definitely given out one.
Oh, we got one before, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, we had the one where we all got a perfect score, but we can't think of somehow.
Yes. All right, Scott. What do you got?
For me, it's a 5, obviously, and again, you could almost say it's a 6 if that was a number, but it's not. It's as close as we're ever gonna get to breaking the scale on that. Entertainment, I am going a 4 here. I think there is certainly potential that this fight isn't the most incredible thing we've ever watched, right? But I do think that both of these women, I should say, have all of these different skills that they can bring so that we have action that can take place in many different realms. I think Zhang Weili is not necessarily going to be likely to sit back and kind of wait out type of things the way some opponents can miss out on opportunities against Valentina Shevchenko. When Shevchenko gets rolling, she kind of keeps things at a certain pace and a certain distance, and it's not always the most fun, right? Sometimes it's just not. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case with Weili. I think she is a gamer in the sense that she'll go after it. So I think that element gets negated a bit, but I'm still gonna go with the 4. I think we're just a little shy of that guaranteed banger that I'm hoping for. So I
Yeah,
got a 9
I
total.
so what's the total score is what? I had
Wait, I
10.
think you gave a 9, you gave a 10, I got a 9, so we got a 9.3. Another amazing score.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
if
I
you.
just remembered. I
Oh,
just remembered what the perfect score was. I believe it was Charles
What
Oliveira
was it?
versus Ilya.
ooh.
No, I don't
I
think
believe.
so.
No? I
I'll
don't know.
find
Maybe
out.
I'm wrong.
I'll find out. We'll
I
throw it
think it was
on.
recent. I think it was recent, but I
Yeah,
can't remember.
yeah.
We'll figure it out.
Um, alrighty. Maybe Duplessis and Hamzat. I'll find out later. All right, let's
Oh,
go to
man.
the next fight on the card.
That might
Sean.
have been it.
That could have been Sean Brady versus Michael Morales, and there's a lot of interesting aspects for this one that we could honestly talk about all of them, but I feel like there's so many. I'm just gonna ask each of you guys what it is for you. What is your most fascinating element of this fight, Eric? What do you think?
So I got two. And the way that I looked at it was like there's what's the most fascinating one? The two that I would choose between are seemingly no one wanting to fight Sean Brady calling out Ian Gary, and seemingly Ian Gary not wanting to fight him. And Sean Brady finally settling on this guy, Michael Morales, who's got a it should be, he's going to look massive in the octagon. If you watch Michael Morales in the octagon, he is humongous for 170. So there's that. I mean, obviously, stylistically, you have Michael Morales, who's an unbelievable striker, unbelievable power, and kind of like the boogeyman of the division a little bit. And Sean Brady's got the crazy pressure forward. But you saw when he was on his back foot against Bilal Muhammad, Brady kind of wilted there. So if the takedowns aren't there, where does Brady go? That's the big question for me. The matchup itself, where does Brady go if the takedowns don't fall for him? That's the $1 million question. How does Brady settle when things go that direction, when his grappling isn't as effective and he needs to survive on his striking alone? Scott, I'm interested to hear what you have to say though.
Honestly, for me, the most interesting part of this fight is the fact that both men have such big potential rewards, despite them not necessarily being in the exact same places in their career. That's what's interesting about it, right? Brady, he has done a lot. He's got a good body of work. He's also got the potential to take advantage of Morales' status here as a very well-regarded prospect who's already in the top 10. And also just the fact that the opportunity cost of being on the UFC championship card where the welterweight title is being defended, right? All the things are kind of coming into place for him so that if he wins this, realistically, especially with Shavkat having been out for such a long time, kind of the real boogeyman of this weight class, I think, if he can't be active, the division just kind of keeps moving, and he certainly looks like the next best thing. On the other side, though, Morales, it is a big step up in his career. He is in that top 10, but this is easily the biggest fight of his career. He could launch himself all the way up into that top 2 or 3 from the bottom of the top 10. So there's a giant gain there. I do think Morales has a lot less to lose. That's the thing. That's the thing that comes with being a prospect who's taking an opportunity against someone much higher up. You lose, okay, you weren't ready yet. We'll give you another one. Let's see. Brady would take a bigger hit with a loss to again a prospect. But again, that's just the fact that either of them could actually gain something really gigantic off of this, despite them not just being like 4 or 5 in the rankings. It's really interesting.
Yeah, for me, I think, and I believe, well, both of you kind of alluded to this, but it's just the fact that Sean Brady's taking this fight against a guy who is, lower in the rankings. For my money, Sean Brady is the best welterweight that is not the champion, not named Bilal Muhammad, and that is currently active and healthy, right? You could talk about Shavkat. You mentioned him being the boogeyman, right? I
Got a
think
couple qualifiers in though, Jake.
a little bit of qualifiers, but all I'm saying is he is the most. He makes the most sense for someone. If Islam was not fighting for the title, Sean Brady would make the most sense to put in to a title fight. Obviously, things shook out a little bit differently, right? But he's taking this fight against a lower ranked guy when if Islam wasn't here, Sean Brady could be that guy that's in this title fight, right? Maybe not right now on this card or what have you,
That's
but
that's my problem.
yeah.
Yes,
They
that's
might
my
not, yeah.
problem with the whole fight even happening is that welterweight was already loaded. I guess it's cool to have Islam, even
It's
more
always
loaded,
loaded.
but there were so many contenders that you could have in there. If Shavkat was healthy, that would be nice, but I don't. It doesn't sound. I haven't heard anything about him in about a year.
Yeah, we'll see what's going on with him. But like you mentioned, Scott, the rest of welterweight moves on. So let's talk about another banger of a welterweight fight: Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates. And Scott, I'll throw this one to you. Edwards has been on a little bit of a downward slope since losing that title. Sean Brady, we already talked about him, performed very well against Leon. Is this his last chance to salvage his championship hopes to get back to that title? What do you think, Scott?
Got to be. How could it not be? Prates is looking to make his name off of former welterweight champion. It's what does Edwards have to gain here other than just stop the bleeding of his recent losses, right? That's his upshot. We've been talking about it a lot. 170 is very deep. We could probably go even deeper into that conversation, but he's third straight loss. Even though there's only 34, we're gonna say it's probably not very feasible for him to make that climb all the way back up. Think about how long it took him forever to get to that point, right? Three losses, I think we start to say, okay, that might be a very hard thing for him.
Yeah, Eric, what do you think?
It's tough. So like when you look at like the welterweight, it's like who else is he gonna fight? Like Leon's takedown defense is was super concerning. Sean Brady was able to get him down easily and fully control him, dominate him on the ground. Sean Brady obviously might be the best welterweight. We're not sure yet, but like it just seems like it regressed. Like Kamaru Usman, he was stuffing takedowns from Kamaru Usman, who's a well-known collegiate wrestler. You know, I have questions about is his takedown defense still there? I actually think Prates is going to go for grappling here at certain points. I think he's going to mix in some takedowns, and we'll see how that goes. Like if he's going to get taken down in this fight, he's going to have a real tough time at welterweight with the rest of these contenders. Like even like someone that just fought this past week, like Gabriel Bonfim. It would be a good matchup for Gabriel because if Leon can't stop takedowns, he's going to get subbed pretty quick in against a lot of these contenders.
I don't know how like we're talking about the last couple of matches have been against some people who have some very very demonstrated solid takedowns. I don't know that we put Prates in that same level, right? So
No.
if he does struggle with that, then that is a very alarming
Yeah.
sign. I don't necessarily look at that right off the bat and say I'm very worried about that from Leon Edwards' perspective, but it is a curious thing. I do have one thing though. While we're brought up Prates here, this was off of media day here, and I want to share. Maybe I've already shared this with you, Jake, but Eric, you wouldn't have heard this. So during media day, you had Carlos Prates up there. He was doing his time with the reporters in the big room and everything like that. He was telling them how after his weigh-in, he's gonna go walking around and eating food wherever he can and all that. And I'm like, dude, are you actually gonna go and just have some regular old street meat that you can find near the weigh-ins? Like, what are we doing here? I hope that's not the case because as much as street meat's delicious. There's nothing wrong with it, but good Lord, maybe not the day before a giant fight. So
Yeah.
I
Get the
wonder what's
UFC.
gonna go on there.
Let's
All
eat
while
some
he's
let's eat,
puffing darts back.
let's eat safe. Let's eat safe right now,
Yeah,
Prates.
you don't
My
want to you don't
Lord.
want to pull a Joe
Um,
Pyfer.
Just really quick, Edwards has been taken down 14 times in his last two fights, 63% takedown defense. It's one of the lower of any of the contenders. So I don't know if Prates is going to grapple here. He's not a known grappler,
Yeah,
but
that's my thing. I think that's the biggest thing is I don't really see Carlos going to the grappling. I see it being a very on the feet exchange unless Leon turns Carlos into a grappler, as Nick Diaz would say, right? Unless he's
oh,
getting really busted
sorry.
up on. Sorry.
Oh, you're a wrestler
Yeah,
now.
exactly, right. Unless Carlos is getting really busted up on the feet, and it's just like you got to try something different. I feel like these guys are going to stand and bang, and we'll see who gets the better of the other in that department.
For sure.
But it's very interesting. I feel like this is going to be a striker's delight, and we'll see if Leon can turn things around for himself. Carlos already, is coming off of a win after that loss to Ian Gary, so different positions for sure. But
Yeah, the takedown defense has just been a little startling, I would say.
y- I get
I
what
know
you're
that
saying.
Brady went 5 of 7 on takedowns, and Bilal went 9 of 13. It's tough. It's hopefully he's working on that a little bit more for his sake.
Yeah, if he comes away with a win on this one, maybe the next fight, that's something that will play more factor into it.
Oh yeah.
But let's talk about Mr. Beneil Dariush and Benoit Saint-Denis, the two Bennies. All right, Scott, I'll go with you. These guys they were both on a little bit of a skid and then they turned things around. They came away with some good wins. What do you think are the stakes relative to the lightweight title picture for these guys, who both, they've been on the upward trajectory to that path at some point? What do you think?
So I think this fight is a case where the nature of the win that either man picks up is going to have a lot to do with how high they can climb from it. Like an impressive victory, it probably gets them from like all the way up to maybe just outside of that very crowded pack of contenders, the Justin Gaethjes, the Paddy Pimbletts, not quite there outside of it, but would set up an opportunity maybe with somebody in that group. And at that point, they're very close to the title picture. But if they don't go out there and look particularly impressive, right, which would be very hard, I think this is going to be a fun fight. It's the type of thing that really is set up for somebody to look good in victory. But honestly, the global talent pool is such at 155, also 170, like we've been talking about. But at 155, it's very stacked, especially in the UFC at that top level. You got to look good, or you're not necessarily going to move up drastically.
Yeah, Eric, what do you think?
Optics super important, as you said. Both fighters, basically, if you look at their records, they both need multiple takedowns in order to win. That's just how it's shaked out for them in their fights. The last two, for Benoit Saint-Denis, three takedowns, both wins. Loss Renato Moicano, no takedowns for Benoit Saint-Denis. So, it's really going to come down to who wins the grappling exchanges. I'll have more on that in a little bit, but it's going to be very, very interesting fight, and I'm excited.
Yeah, this one, between the two of them, I'm not sure who's closer. I want to say Benoit, but then again, Dariush also just beat Renato, who, I mean, obviously circumstances. Yeah, so
Not
MMA
MMA
math
math.
is, yeah,
Who
MMA
this?
math is always coming in to mess with my head. But that's definitely a very interesting
Yes.
one. And you know what? Let's talk about the what would you call it? The feature prelim fight? What's
It's
the
the feature prelim
yeah,
fight. Yes.
feature
Very
prelim fight?
briefly on the main card.
Yes, it was very briefly on the main card. It swapped places with Benny and Benny, and now Bo is on the prelim card. But
Oh,
Scott, you
Nickal, sir.
yes, Bo Nickal. We are not personal acquaintances, so Bo Nickal, who Scott you very briefly talked to. Well, not very briefly. He had a conversation with him yesterday at Media Day, and that went very well. So please go ahead and check it out if you haven't already. Some very interesting stuff talking about his loss to RDR and how he's bounced back from them. But let's talk about Bo Nickal and Rodolfo Vieira. Obviously, that RDR loss was not expected. Bo came into that fight, as he did with all of his fights, as a heavy favorite, and RDR dropped him in that first round with a knee. And yeah, do you think that this is the right matchup? I'll go to Eric on this one. Do you think that this is the right matchup to have Bo come back from after maybe having a bit of a higher level of competition than he was expecting?
Yeah, I think that the RDR matchup, I think that the UFC and Bo as well were a little surprised at where our Reiner de Ritter ended up going. Got to basically a number one contender spot against Brendan Allen and ended up losing that fight. I think that Alpha Vieira is a really perfect fighter here for a bunch of reasons. Number one, I think that Bo Nickal needs to fight somebody, especially if you're trying to build him back up, right? Because that was the goal. Bo Nickal was exclusively fighting on pay-per-view, and Bo Nickal was talked about a lot as potential future star, future champion maybe, and that all came crashing down. I think Rodolfo Vieira is very good for him because we've seen Bo Nickal fight elite level grapplers, jiu-jitsu practitioners. Watch the match that he had with Gordon Ryan in like modified rules in a grappling match. Bo Nickal looked amazing in that matchup with Gordon Ryan. He fights now Rodolfo Vieira, who's one of the best jiu-jitsu practitioners to ever come in from into mixed martial arts. Bo Nickal should, in theory, be able to match him with striking while also holding his own in the grappling. I think it's an ideal matchup. If the end goal is to see if Bo Nickal can get up to that elite level, I think that the UFC could do no better.
What do you think, Scott?
I think this is definitely the right matchup. And I don't always feel that way about the way Bo Nickal's career has been booked with the UFC. I think some matchups were almost like a little too soft, and then they got a giant jump up. And obviously I think it was too high for him to go against Reiner de Ritter, who I don't think everyone really understood just how good he was. He would have been he had been very accomplished before he got to the UFC. This was not just some stop along the way. And I think that was the wrong matchup. But here, I think it's perfect. Frankly, they should have done this before RDR. Could have almost done it in reverse, and that would have been more interesting. But Bo told me yesterday this was a fight that he'd kind of wanted for a while against Vieira, and not not out of any sort of way other than a fascinating matchup and respect and that kind of thing. But it's very logical booking. It would be a shame though if it didn't play out right on the ground. Bo did say to me, yes, we're looking to I would like to challenge myself on the ground. I want to see what it would be like in that situation. And I like that kind of the blood sport, the Kumite, the early 90s UFC, that whole kind of element to this matchup. It is fun. They've got other skills, but this is what it is, right? This is what it is. And I want to see it play out like that. So, especially rather than like a blase kickboxing match. We don't need another one of those. I think this would do a lot for everybody. So I like it. I'm hopeful for it. I think it'll be a cool matchup.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to it. It's like there were probably the similar expectations for the Paul Krieg fight last year at the Garden, and it played out a little bit differently than I would have expected, at least, with a jiu-jitsu guy like Paul Krieg. So, yeah, I think that's probably the last big fight. I mean, there's plenty of other big fights that we could talk about on this card, but probably the most notable 6. And let's talk about them, right? We got the other prelim fights to watch. We've covered so many that it is exclusively on the prelims now. Scott, what is your prelim fight to watch?
I'm going to go a little deeper. I'm going with Kyle Daukaus against Gerald Meerschaert because, frankly, it's hard to look at this fight and not get excited by the prospect of someone tapping out somebody in the 3rd round, especially in the 3rd round. That's where Gerald Meerschaert always gets it done. Win or lose, it seems like that's sometimes they do differently, right? But a lot of them end up there. GM3 does his deal there, right? And so I love this matchup. I think it's fantastic. It's going to be fun. It's a crowd pleaser. I like it a lot.
Eric, how about you?
Yeah, let's go Malcolm Wellmaker versus Cody Hayden. And Cody Hayden is a UFC newcomer from Australia. And he only has one loss. His one loss was in 2021 against Steve Erceg. Watch that fight. It's on YouTube. It is such a fun fight. Cody Hayden gave Steve Erceg everything he could handle back in 2021. I think he's very slept on, and he's an underdog here against Malcolm Wellmaker. And Malcolm Wellmaker obviously knocking everybody out right now. Let's see if Malcolm Wellmaker is as good as oddsmakers think, as the UFC might think. Cody Hayden is not a layup by any means. Cody Hayden's very, very good.
All right.
And Wellmaker basically said that too at Media Day. He said the exact same thing. Like, he has a lot of respect for him, and I think he kind of gave props to the betting community and the MMA community for, like, listen, this is not one of those inflated odd fights like I've had. Like, this, I respect this guy, so I think he sees the danger just like you do.
Yeah, that should. I'm so excited for that fight.
That is going to be a very good one. For me, I've got Aaron Blanchfield versus Tracy Cortez. I feel like this one, I'm picking really more just because the stakes of the women's flyweight division. If Erin comes away with a win here, I feel like she's got to be the next one up. And we'll see. Tracy Cortez getting a win over someone like Erin. Not sure if she's there just yet, but that'd be an absolutely massive win for her. So yeah, I think that this is just a lot to do with the stakes at the top of women's flyweight. So. And
the fact that it's actually happening on the same card as the title fight, the same thing we were talking about with Brady and Morales, right? The opportunity here is big. And when I spoke to Aaron Blanchfield a couple weeks back as well, and you can find that conversation on our channel as well. There was certainly the element of like, hey, if I go out there and put on a good performance, you can kind of do that Joshua Van thing and maybe position yourself as the obvious next person.
100%. And if you haven't checked out that interview, please go back and watch it. Erin and her teammate, who's also fighting in this card, Fatima Klein, the two of them sat down with Scott, and it was a bunch of fun. But Scott, I've been dying to know what our event rating is for this card. Should Eric and I guess first, or what?
Yeah, can I guess?
Yeah, you gave me a guess yesterday, but throw it out there. What's your number?
I did. Mine, I'm thinking it's a 96. Eric, what do you got?
96? I was going to go 94.
Okay. Scott?
Sirs, this is a 99.
Oh.
It is top 10 ever.
That's
Top
insane.
10 all time. We're talking about the most stacked, the highest rated card since UFC 300.
Ah,
And frankly, I believe this is the
we're
only
gonna be in the
event
building.
with two fights that are number one of a weight class and number one of a weight class. So usually it's like
Mm.
one versus two, one versus three. You have one versus one two times, and that is wild. These are numbers per fight matrix, right? I get all my stuff from here for this particular item. Five of the fights on this card have both fighters in the top 11, 8 fights where they're all in the top 25, 11 fights where they're all in the top 70. The whole main card is top 20 or better. Just incredibly stacked. The numbers are amazing. There's just not that many prospect fights on here to drag it down anyway. And none of the prospects, or let's say, veterans who are on the lower side of that kind of thing. And I don't mean this as a diss, but like the Slava Claus, Vyacheslav Borshev is fighting on this card. He's much lower ranked. It's just what it is numerically. It's so stacked everywhere else. It just doesn't matter. This is an amazing card. It's every bit as good as you think it is when you look at it, number wise.
Wow. I
Even
can't
the
believe.
prospects on this card. Even the prospects on this card, like we didn't even talk about Susurkayev, Bysinger Susurkayev is fighting on this card too. Like he's a big time prospect too.
It's a
Mhm.
absolutely
He's
loaded
just outside the
card.
top 100 too. He's not even that far down, really.
Yeah, yeah. Like we'll look back on that and be like, oh my God, Susurkayev was on this card. Malcolm Wellmaker and Cody Haddon were on this card. Like what?
Yeah, no, this is absolutely insane. But let's finish up this UFC 322 talk with Eric's 3 bets in 3 minutes. You ready, Eric?
Thank you, Jake. We head to UFC 322 coming off of a 1-2 night with Christian Leroy Duncan winning inside the distance, and then missed, obviously, on the main event and co-main event. So we head in to 3 bets in 3 minutes. I'm picking the whole card on the newspaper Friday. You can grab it, and then also online for free on NewYorkPost.com. We start with the prelims. 3 bets in 3 minutes. Put 3 minutes on the clock and go. We start with Gregory Rodriguez versus Roman Kopylov. Roman Kopylov, I actually view this as a step up in competition for him. I know he just lost to Paulo Costa, and Paulo Costa looked great in that fight. My issue with Roman Kopylov is that he struggles when he is not the one coming forward, and Gregory Rodriguez is always coming forward. Now, I think the odds are so close here because we're projecting a step back here for Rodriguez. I mean, he's getting older. He's definitely not in his prime at this point, but he is training with Alex Pajeda over in Connecticut. I think that he actually is going to come in here correct. I think that he pushes the pace at a really good measure. He has definitely really good striking in terms of the power, and he has a grappling upside here too. I think that he could win this fight by submission or by TKO. I'm going to take Gregory Rodriguez to win inside the distance plus 150, one of my absolute favorite bets on the card. And then we get to another main card fight where we go Michael Morales versus Sean Brady. Now, Philly stand up. I always have been a big Sean Brady guy. And I'll tell you why. I think that Michael Morales, and he is way bigger than he is, and he's a way better striker, but I also think Michael Morales is a pretty massive step up for him. Sean Brady, I view as, could easily be the champion right now. He fought Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns was, plus 700 underdog in that fight. Neil Magny, Jake Matthews. Sean Brady, in terms of his ability to get takedowns, is going to be frustrating to deal with. He's going to be on his back foot a lot. And I think Brady's actually going to get this fight down to the mat and win by submission. Get it at plus 450 right now over on ESPN Bet. Brady, I like where he's at in terms of the high volume and the high pressure. And we saw that come back to bite him against Bilal Muhammad, where it kind of didn't go that direction. But if he is able to really threaten the takedowns, it really opens up the striking for him. So give me Sean Brady by submission plus 450. I also think that that's a discounted price. I think we're giving Michael Morales is a really, really high level prospect, but this might be a little bit too much too quickly for Michael Morales. And then we go to the co-main event, Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang Weili. Here's the thing about Valentina Shevchenko right now, and this isn't a knock on her. She is fighting on thinner margins recently, and that's just a fact. She, had the the split decision fight against Talia Santos. She lost to Alexa Grasso, had the draw with Alexa Grasso, and then she won by unanimous decision against Alexa Grasso. The Manon Fior fight, I thought that Fior could have won that fight if she just landed a couple more strikes in some key spots, but Valentina Shevchenko is not going to be able to fall back on her grappling as she did against Alexa Grasso, and I think that is the story of the fight. Zhang Weili, money line, plus 114. I think that Valentina Shevchenko is not going to fall back on the grappling, and I think that Zhang Weili is going to win the striking. I will take Zhang Weili. It probably happens by decision. If you can snag a couple significant strike props, Zhang Weili, 100-plus significant strike props, not up right now, but if you can get it at a good number, maybe plus 300 or higher, that's happened in 2 of the last 3 5-round fights for Zhang Weili. Those are your 3 bets in 3 minutes. I'll see you at the card.
Alrighty,
Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Eric. And let's talk about what happened last weekend. Gabriel Bonfim, I feel like is the guy who like pronounces
Gabriel Bonfim,
Gabriel
I believe.
Bonfim, as the guy who like prides himself on my Brazilian Portuguese pronunciation. I feel like I should know that. Versus Randy Brown.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Gabriel Bonfim knocking out Randy Brown. Some people had a little bit to say about the stoppage. Knockout, maybe the TKO.
The
Randy
stoppage
Brown.
was fine. In short, the stoppage was
Yeah.
fine. Stop complaining about it.
Good
If you see a point where the person is out, the fighter is out, the referee is trained to stop it at that point.
I
So
agree.
it doesn't matter what happens thereafter. You're not gonna do the double clutch thing. It's over.
Yeah.
That's how it
I agree.
goes. Sorry if you don't like it. It's the way it works.
I 100% agree, and maybe we'll do like a haymaker at the end of this. But yes, it happened to Randy Brown, and I gotta ask Scott. I'll go with you on this one. How close to title contention do you think Gabriel Bonfim could be with a win over someone like Randy Brown, and a pretty impressive one at that?
Man, we spend a lot of time on this show talking about just how deep welterweight is, right? We've got 3 important welterweight fights this weekend that have much more bearing on the title picture than this one does, frankly. So it highlights, again, that depth. I expect that Gabriel Bonfim is like probably minimum a year away from even getting to a title eliminator, right? That's not to say he's not a good fighter. That's not to say he's not impressive or that he's not going places. This kid's 28 years old. He's going places, okay? I think we see something here, maybe, right? But it's still going to take a little bit of time. I think probably a good next logical step for him is somebody like who he mentioned after he mentioned that silly Colby Covington thing, because that was stupid. Joaquin Buckley. That was a good call out that he had and said, listen, if I can't get this fight, Joaquin Buckley, I'll take that action. And I think that's a really smart one. Makes a lot of sense for both of them.
You like that one, Eric?
I like Joaquin Buckley. I like Colby Covington too. I don't think that was stupid. I think that was fine. But
But
that's
Colby
just me.
Covington's not going to fight him. That's why it's stupid.
Fair. I guess that's fair. Colby has to fight
Yeah.
somebody, right? I guess at some point.
Does he?
Maybe. I guess he doesn't have to. Yeah, he doesn't. I guess he doesn't. He's a ways away. I would say even if he won his next 3 or 4 in a row, he's still not going to get a title shot. Even if
I think it's harder than that. I don't think it's that bad.
You don't think so? I mean, like, how many times?
No, I think if he wins 3 fights, and at this point we're talking about guys ahead of him, realistically, he wins 3 fights against guys ahead of him. I think we're demanding he gets a title shot.
Yeah, I
It
guess. I
depends
don't
on
know,
who
like-
those guys are. If I told you right
Yeah.
now, like in one of those 3 fights, he's like he beats Sean Brady, right? Then you'd be like, give this guy a title shot.
Well, if one of them's
If
Brady,
he beats
then
Sean
yes.
Brady, Ian Gary, and I don't know, Bilal Muhammad, who's saying no?
I was going like Buckley, Leon Edwards, and one other guy, maybe. Probably not though. Still no.
It's
I don't
actually,
know.
I mean, that actually, now you play, that seems like we're going up the ladder of the rankings in an appropriate manner, but that's a lot of like, there's a lot of, we
You
don't know,
have to
we can't tell
fight
the
whoever.
future.
Whole lot of
You have to fight
permutations
whoever
here,
was
guys.
the champ.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
you have to fight whoever was the champ, and it gets a little hairy.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, but then again, like we mentioned earlier on, Jack Della Maddalena didn't have to fight any of them,
Never
and he
did.
got the
Okay.
title shot. So
Well,
who knows?
Yeah, one more thing also on that, because I know, Eric, you were saying, like, how did this happen?
Wow.
Right place, right time. That's how that
Right
happened.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you fight the person in front of you, but when you look back at the record, it's like half of these guys, more than half of them, aren't in the UFC anymore. But he beat all of them very convincingly, besides Bilal, which was a really, really close, entertaining decision.
The problem is a lot
So
of those
this-
fights you were naming were years ago, and he just didn't fight
Yes.
much between the time he got the title. He was inactive from March 2014 until May 2015 when he wins the title. So there's a long time where he just isn't doing anything. He just kind of I don't want to say dumb luck because he put himself in position, but at the same time, We said it wouldn't be, right?
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
Eric and I caught, just to clarify, 2024 to 2025, right? As opposed to
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
The 24.
okay, okay.
You're right. Thank you, thank you.
Got you. For a second, I was like, what?
2014.
Now you appreciate the fact
Jack
check, my
Della.
guys. Thank you.
Yeah,
Jack Della would have been 13.
yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think that we are finally done talking about welterweights, or maybe, yeah. I don't think.
Maybe
Ready.
not.
Next
Who
week,
knows?
we're
Yeah.
talking welterweight again. We're going to talk about welterweight again.
Yeah,
next
I was gonna
week.
scan through quick hits, but let's talk about quick hits. Scott, what do you got?
So obviously we've got some bigger ones actually this week. Usually we don't have them when we're talking about a fight week of this magnitude, but there are some things that we unfortunately won't even get to dive into as much as we would like. John Jones, speaking on the No Scripts podcast, expressed remorse for torpedoing that planned fight against Tom Aspinall that everybody was trying to work on. Dana White was promising was going to happen. He confirmed that he reneged on a verbal agreement to do that fight, which was pretty bad. He also suggested Dana White and the UFC maybe let bygones be bygones, and hey, let's just do that White House card. Let's just make it happen. He's trying. Oh gosh, I don't know. It's a bad look. Referee Herb Dean going in another direction here. Another thing we could have gone deep into. Speaking on the Believe You Me podcast, said that referees are going to move forward on more strictly enforcing the extended fingers foul that we keep talking about. It's already on the books.
I was gonna say, you and I had a lengthy
It's
conversation
already
about that.
there.
Talked
Yes,
about
we
that.
did. So they're going to start enforcing that in a real way, he says, right? To better protect those fighters from eye pokes. I'm curious what that's going to look like. Reminder, I'd like a warning and then a point and 2 points for eye pokes, and I don't even care about the warnings, just the 2 points. That's what I want, and it's not going to happen, we'll see. That's just me.
No, that's what I want to.
Moving in another direction here, the price of a Paramount Plus subscription is due for an uptick early next year as the UFC moves over to that service. This, according to the Paramount Skydance CEO, writing to his investors on that one. Eric, you got something to say about that, right?
Yes, if you want to lock in CBS Paramount Plus at a cheaper rate, you can go and Walmart Plus is included in CBS Paramount. I don't get a commission on that or anything like that, but I just wanted to let you know it's like $49.99 for Walmart Plus, and then you get CBS for free for the year. So as an inclusion into the Walmart deal. So if you want, a little bit of a cheaper deal, go for it.
Excellent PSA from you, Eric. I've got a few more quick hits I'm going to hit you guys with, running the scope here. Reported from MMA Fighting, the UFC has cut ties with Chris Barnett, Huggy Bear, and Kiefer Crosby, and as well as parting ways with Kurt Hollabaugh. So we're losing a couple off the roster. Some unfortunate news on several levels, I guess it is. Godofredo Pepe, former Ultimate Fighter Brazil runner-up, who had been in a Florida jail stemming from an arrest related to an alleged domestic violence incident, was found dead in his cell. He was 38. And then lastly, this is outside of the UFC and a little more cheerful. Rizin has announced its traditional New Year's Eve event at Saitama Super Arena in Japan. It's set to feature Ryan Bader's debut with the promotion. He's going to fight against Alexander Soltakin for the heavyweight title of Rizin. That's one of 6 title fights on the night. That'll be a fun way to ring in the new year in Japan. So if you guys haven't watched Rizin yet, this would be a great card to try it out. I would recommend.
Heck yeah! And New Year's Eve cards, what time do those typically go on? And it's over in Asia, right? So
it's in Japan, yeah, at Saitama Super Arena, where they used to have all the biggest Pride fights as well. The New Year's Eve event in Japan is tradition. It goes back a very long time. So I highly recommend that. I forget exactly what time it's going to be at, but
yeah.
just check your listings and figure it out because it's fun. I would recommend it. I really do.
Okay, because I was in my head, I was thinking, I was like, God, New Year's Eve, like, I don't know where I'm gonna be at midnight, But if it's
no. This will predate what your New Year's plans are because we're talking about a different part of the world.
Right, that's what I was alluding to. That's what I was alluding to. Okay,
yes,
good.
It's
All right.
New Year's Eve for them. They don't care about you.
I'll throw it on the calendar. Perfect. Alrighty, so I think we have arrived to final round time. Let's talk about our previous homework assignment. Kazuo Misaki versus Jorge Santiago, the second fight.
The Grabaka Hitman, Kazuo Misaki.
All right, there we go. I don't know what that means, but I will
say
this.
If you're familiar with Caposa from social media, as I'm sure you are, Jake,
I am.
That is where his handle comes from Grabaka_Hitman.
Oh, all right. It's a cool nickname. I like
Mhm.
it. Okay, but I will say
There you
this.
go.
So I was watching this one in my living room couch. I live with my brother, and he comes and sits down, and he's like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "It's a homework assignment from Scott." He watches, I think, the final 3 rounds, which I mean, honestly, the fight got better as it got on.
That's
So
where it picks up.
that's where it picks up. In the 5th round, he turns to me and he goes, "I think this might be the greatest fight I've ever watched." And I mean, obviously, he hasn't watched as much as I have, and especially not you two. But I was like,
Listen, it's not a bad one to say that about, though.
no, definitely not. It was just like, dude, back and forth. It was absolute chaos, like the whole time. In a manner that, like, when you think about chaos in like MMA fights, you think about just like people like repeatedly punching each other in the face. Like, no, this one was just like switching of positions, like just it was crazy. What did you think about it, Eric?
I thought it was fantastic. Jorge Santiago the second at the end of the fight. So he nearly gets a finish at the end of a round. It goes to the corner.
This is
Santiago.
just so you know, it's Jorge Santiago. This is the second time they fought. He's not Jorge Santiago the second, or George
Oh,
Santiago, actually.
so
That's
Jorge
all right.
Santiago. He goes to the corner and is Kazu Misasaki, I believe is how you
But
pronounce
just
it.
call him Misaki.
Um,
Misaki.
Okay. Misaki goes to the corner, is gassed. He's on the chair. Santiago doesn't even sit down. He stands up and he's like, "Whew, man, this is crazy." Like whatever. Like he's like talking to his corner and like chilling out. Then he obviously gets the finish at the end of the next round. But I mean, what a serial killer. That was like what I was saying to myself. I was like, this guy's nuts. Like an absolute savage. Super fun fight, super back and forth. And I can't get past it. The ring adds so much. Like at one point, I believe Santiago's going for a submission, and Misaki grabs the rope. And in my head, I'm like WWE. He's like, oh, he grabbed the rope. That means it's a break, right? As like I guess me just messing around.
What I thought was
I
like
guess
super
so.
interesting was it kind of reflected the Drew Dober situation. It's like he when he tried to escape the ring, like he got out of the ring to make the time stop, and then they go get reset, and it's like 2 points or red card or what have you, and then he just immediately
It's a red
goes and
card,
knocks the other guy out. He was like, oh well,
Dude,
got to take care of business.
when you're watching this fight, because you guys didn't know the result as you were watching this, this was purely like, hey, I'm gonna find out what happens as I go along. So there was real mystery. It was like a fresh fight for you guys in a real way. When you get to that 4th round and Santiago hits the deck, uh, I mean, did you just assume that was the finish?
There
Like
was a few
when that was
times.
coming, like
Yeah, there were a couple
that one in
times,
particular,
especially
because yeah,
the first guillotine. Honestly, I was like, like the video has 30 minutes, but this is it. Like, I was like,
Yeah,
that guillotine is. How does he get out of this? He just wiggled his way out.
yeah,
but that knockdown in particular, I mean, you look at Santiago and like the kind of the same thing happened to Randy Brown. Like you really could have stopped that fight. They just didn't, and that was the
Yeah.
referee's discretion, right? He just
yeah,
let it go. But that was a situation where that was basically he really was kind of knocked out. He just kind of kept going and
Yeah.
he survived long enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
There was
crazy.
definitely
Went on
some.
to
That
win.
was the fight of the year from 2010.
I remember the
Yeah.
announcer said he was like, "I think we might have a fight of the year contender." I was like, "I'm sure you do," you know.
Yeah.
Voice Michael
2010,
Schiavello.
great year for him.
Good night, Irene.
What was so
Yep.
the
20,
promotion?
2010. Good.
What was the promotion before we wrap this one up? What's the deal with?
The-
Yeah.
It was almost like two things. Like I've always heard it called World Victory Road, but also I remember it being called Sengoku Raiden Championship.
Yeah.
So it's one or the other or both. Excuse me. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Because Dylan was asking me, I was like, I actually don't know. But let's move on to our next piece of MMA history. Sorry, Scott. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. Scott, why don't you give us
Darn.
our This Week in MMA?
I'm glad you brought her up earlier. Chris Cyborg, you're gonna get a chance to watch Chris Cyborg early on with like, the killer she was. This is her fight against Jan Finney, also in 2010 when they were in Strikeforce. Early in Cyborg's run as that dominant force at 45 when it's 145 pounds. We're still talking about her 15 years later as the champion. It's pretty crazy. Jan Finney for this one, I can't lie, just a warm body. That's all she was. She was 8-7 coming into this fight. I'm not promising that this is going to be a very even matchup. This is really for you to understand just how incredible Chris Cyborg was.
Alrighty, and then now is time for This Week in MMA. I got the two mixed up on the doc there.
All good.
Homework, assignment, and then This Week in MMA. Scott, what do we got?
10 years ago, this week, November 15, 2015, Holly Holm stuns Ronda Rousey at UFC 193 in that main event, becomes the bantamweight champion, ends Ronda Rousey's reign, her perfect record, the era of Ronda. It all comes to a startling halt. This is a real earth-shaking moment in MMA history, and it still resonates today. So this was a really monumental this week in MMA.
Eric, where were you when that happened?
I was a new MMA fan at that point, and I remember that when that happened. Crazy. Absolutely. It's screeching halt. Her reign came down immediately from there. It was one of the quickest and flattest falls from grace that's ever happened in MMA.
Absolutely wild. Yeah,
and I should also add to that, like, obviously there's been this whole thing about her legacy, and she was talking recently about, how 1 minute you're amazing and next, you're SHI, and I think that absolutely there is a tendency by fans and media to do that kind of thing, but I think we need to. She's right. We do need to have some perspective here. When she was at her best, she was amazing. She was incredible. She was the GOAT of that time. There are people who've passed her, but she is that, as I've said, I think on the show before, she is that Royce Gracie of women's MMA, whose legacy really is kind of untouchable in a very unique way.
Honestly, and then whatever your opinion on Conor is, she's like the Conor too. She's still, I think, the most recognizable female fighter name. If I said Ronda Rousey to my mom, there's a chance she would know who that was. If I said Amanda Nunes, she'd be like, "Who is that?"
Nope.
For sure.
Yep.
In that way, you're right.
Especially look at pay-per-view buys as well. Like Ronda was the only female that was, getting million pay-per-view buys. At least that's what they reported. If you look at the pay-per-view shows, Ronda Rousey was a big draw. Same with Conor. That's what I like the Conor comparison better than the Royce Gracie one.
Both different, There's a little bit of
I stand by my words.
We're getting a little bit sidetracked, so let's get ourselves out of here so we can get ready for Saturday. But Scott, we got one more fight for people to take a look at this weekend outside of the massive weekend for the UFC and other MMA promotions. What do we have?
We've got one championship, number 173. It's streaming on YouTube Saturday night into Sunday morning. So kind of around the same time it's starting as we have kind of winding down, getting to those main event fights in the UFC. This is a mixed combat sports event. So we've got Muay Thai and boxing as well. Specifically on the MMA side, though, there's several top 100, I should say, fighters in action on this card. It's actually pretty solid as far as cards go outside of the UFC. If you're still jacked up after the UFC fights, just throw it on YouTube. You can just put it on and check out what you get. You might get to some of those interesting fights. You might watch some boxing or some actual, like, legit, some interesting Muay Thai as well. It's not a bad one to check out.
All right. Thank you, Scott.
I'll just add that Islam Makhachev won his fight last weekend. He won his fight by TKO.
And so did my prospect Zumso Zaraev, my heavyweight one as well.
Scott's prospects been doing well. We'll see how Fatima Klein does this weekend.
I've been tracking my prospects. Actually, there's another one. My bantamweight Pires is in action at LFA too. So there's some. I know I spot talent. I'm telling you, I'm a great scout. I'm amazing.
Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby, Scott Fontana is
shaking in their boots.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't do enough research. I'll be perfectly honest. I cannot claim that.
I can imagine.
I think these are fighters going places. These fighters are going places. Just watch.
Yeah. All right. And on that note, Eric, we will see you soon. Have a safe drive up from Florida, and enjoy
your birthday, sir.
Yes. Yes. Alrighty, guys. Till Saturday.